The sun had begun to dip below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the last standing cities of Earth. The once vibrant planet, teeming with life and civilization, now lay on the verge of collapse. Alien forces had descended upon Earth with terrifying speed. They were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Colossal ships, advanced weaponry, and an army that seemed unstoppable. The sky, once bright and clear, was now darkened by the alien fleet's looming presence. As people looked up from their windows, the massive silhouettes of the invaders hovered above, casting shadows over entire continents. Cities that had once been symbols of human achievement were now nothing more than target zones for the alien invaders. The world was at war, and it seemed there was no hope left. Inside the command center of Earth's last remaining defense fleet, chaos and panic were palpable. Officers scrambled at their consoles, their fingers flying across the buttons as they coordinated the final stand of humanity. They had fought countless battles over the past weeks, but each one ended in defeat. The alien forces were overwhelming, their ships nearly invincible, their tactics flawless. It was only a matter of time before humanity would be wiped from existence. Commander Elizabeth Grant stood at the front of the room, her back straight, her expression unreadable. She had seen the devastation firsthand. Cities were reduced to rubble, forests turned to ash, and the oceans themselves boiled as the aliens deployed their devastating weapons. Yet, despite everything, she refused to give up. She couldn't. Not when the world was counting on her. "Commander, the fleet is ready," Captain Jameson called out from behind her, his voice tense. "We're all that's left. If we fail, it's over." Elizabeth nodded grimly. They knew what the stakes were. There were no reinforcements, no hope of a sudden miracle. The remaining fleet was small, barely enough to mount a defense, but it was all humanity had left. And even though the aliens vastly outnumbered them, humanity had something they didn't: determination. "Initiate the countdown," Elizabeth said, her voice firm. "We'll give them everything we have." The officers around her rushed to complete their orders. The plan was simple: use the remaining ships to launch a counterattack against the alien flagship, the heart of their fleet. If they could destroy it, perhaps the rest of the alien forces would retreat. But the chances of success were slim. The aliens had shielded their flagship with an impenetrable force field. Jameson tapped a few more commands into his console, and the screens in the command center flickered to life. A countdown began. They had less than 30 minutes before the alien fleet would open fire again. "Sir," a voice interrupted, and Lieutenant Madison turned to them from her station. Her face was pale, and her eyes wide with disbelief. "We've just received an encrypted message. It's from an unknown source." "Play it," Elizabeth ordered, her brow furrowing in confusion. The room fell silent as the message crackled through the speakers. A robotic voice, cold and emotionless, filled the space. "Humanity does not submit. You strike back now or perish." The message ended abruptly. A chill ran through the room, and for a moment, no one moved. The officers exchanged confused glances. "Who sent that?" Jameson asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "We don't know," Madison replied, scanning the incoming data. "The source is untraceable. It appears to be coming from deep space, but there are no identifiable signals." Elizabeth stood frozen for a moment, the weight of the message sinking in. "You strike back now or perish." It was a warning, a challenge, but also a call to action. "Could this be a trap?" asked Captain Jameson, his eyes narrowing. "I don't know," Elizabeth said, her mind racing. "But it's the only lead we have. If there's a chance for survival, we need to follow it." She turned to her officers. "Prepare a response team. We'll investigate. Madison, find out everything you can about this message. If it's a trick, we need to know. If it's real, then it might be our only chance." As Madison worked quickly to decrypt the message, Elizabeth walked over to the observation deck, staring out at the alien fleet hovering over Earth. The ships were so large that they blotted out entire sections of the sky. What had started as a peaceful exploration mission had turned into an invasion. A quiet hum echoed through the deck as the fleet's engines powered up. The aliens had been patient. They had waited for the perfect moment to strike, and now they were on the brink of eradicating humanity. But Elizabeth wouldn't let that happen. Not without a fight. The message from the unknown source seemed like a lifeline. It wasn't much, but it was something. They couldn't afford to ignore it. The aliens had come for them, but humanity was not ready to surrender. "Commander," Madison called out, pulling Elizabeth from her thoughts. "I've decoded part of the message. It's strange, but it appears to be a warning and a prophecy. The message speaks of an ancient alliance between different species, a group who swore to defend the galaxy against any threat. It's unclear, but it seems to suggest that humanity is destined to play a role in a much larger conflict." Elizabeth's heart skipped a beat. An ancient alliance. Could humanity really be part of something larger? Could this message be real, and not just some form of psychological warfare designed to confuse them? "Prepare the fleet," Elizabeth said with newfound resolve. "We have no time to waste. If there's even a chance this message is real, we have to act on it. We won't let Earth fall without trying everything." As the last few ships in Earth's fleet powered up, Elizabeth felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. The countdown was nearly complete. She had made the decision. There was no turning back. Humanity's survival now rested on the shoulders of the few brave souls willing to fight until the end. The alien forces, their massive ships now positioned above the planet, prepared for the final strike. The battle for Earth was about to begin. But just as they were about to launch their assault, another transmission came through. The voice was clear, but the words sent a ripple of shock through the command center. "Humanity has been chosen. The time to strike back is now. You are not alone." Elizabeth's eyes widened. What did this mean? Who was speaking? The message was full of hope, but it came with no answers, only more questions. As the alien ships prepared to unleash their devastating weapons, Elizabeth knew one thing for certain. Humanity would fight back. They would strike, and no matter the outcome, they would not go down without a fight. The fate of the world rested on their shoulders, and Commander Elizabeth Grant was determined to lead them to victory, no matter the cost. The skies above Earth were a chaotic battlefield, filled with the deafening roar of ship engines and the shrill cries of warning alarms. The alien fleet had already launched a devastating wave of firepower, turning the once serene atmosphere into a hellish inferno. Explosions lit up the horizon, and entire sections of Earth's cities had already fallen to the alien assault. But Commander Elizabeth Grant and the remaining forces of humanity weren't ready to give up. They had one chance, one final shot at survival. The fleet of human ships, small and battered, formed a tight formation above Earth's atmosphere, ready to fight to the very end. There were only 20 ships left, their hulls pockmarked from earlier skirmishes. The aliens, however, numbered in the thousands, their ships sleek and impenetrable, their weapons designed to annihilate any force in their path. It was an unfair fight. The odds were against them, but humanity had always thrived in the face of adversity. Today would be no different. Commander Grant paced the command deck of the flagship, Horizon's Edge, her mind racing as she tried to formulate a strategy. The alien ships were too strong, too advanced. A head-on assault would result in certain death. But if they couldn't defeat the aliens directly, they might be able to outsmart them. "Commander," Captain Jameson said, his voice steady but strained, "the alien flagship is still shielded. We can't get through their defenses. If we can't break that shield, all of this will be for nothing." Grant turned to face him, her jaw set in determination. "We don't need to destroy it. We just need to cause enough confusion to give us a chance. Every ship in their fleet is connected to the flagship, and if we can disable their communications, we can create a chain reaction. We'll need a team to infiltrate their defenses," Jameson said, looking over the battle plans. But that'll be risky. They'll know we're coming. Risky is all we have left, Grant replied sharply. Prepare a squad. I'll lead them. The mission was set. While the remaining ships took up defensive positions to engage the alien forces, Grant would lead a small team aboard a stealth vessel, Shadow's Edge, deep into the heart of the alien fleet. The team consisted of the best pilots and soldiers left, people who were willing to risk everything for the survival of their species. As the team assembled, the tension was palpable. Some of them wore expressions of quiet determination, while others seemed lost in thought, unsure if they would make it back alive. But there was no time to waste. Humanity's fate rested on this one mission. Let's make it count, Grant said, her voice low but firm as she addressed the crew. We don't know what we're walking into, but we're going to do what we've always done. Fight. We strike back, or we perish. The crew of Shadow's Edge silently nodded in agreement. There was no turning back now. The Shadow's Edge slipped silently through the chaos of the battle, its cloaking technology keeping it hidden from the alien sensors. Around them, explosions erupted as Earth's ships engaged the invaders in a desperate defense. The alien ships were far more advanced, but humanity had one advantage. They knew the terrain, the planets, and the moons in their system like the back of their hands. The alien forces, on the other hand, were unaccustomed to fighting in such close quarters. It was a small advantage, but it was enough for the humans to exploit. The ship made its way toward the alien flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest of Earth's ships. It was covered in strange markings, and its surface was lined with enormous energy weapons that could obliterate entire fleets with a single blast. The ship was the heart of the alien fleet, and it was protected by a web of smaller vessels that acted as both guards and communication relays. Grant's team had to disable the alien flagship's communication systems, a task that would require getting close enough to plant explosives on their control systems. The alien ships would notice their presence before long, but the mission was their only hope. The Shadow's Edge maneuvered around a cluster of asteroids, using the debris for cover as they approached the flagship. Every inch closer they got, the tension grew. The alien ships were all around them now, their weapon systems scanning for any sign of intrusion. The crew was silent, each person focused on the task at hand, each of them knowing the risks involved. A single mistake could spell their doom. 5 clicks to the flagship, the pilot, Lieutenant Ortega, said. We'll be in their sensor range soon. We need to move fast. Grant nodded and turned to the rest of the crew. Prepare to board. We'll drop the explosives, and then get out. Fast and clean. As they drew closer to the alien ship, the crew made their final preparations. They would need to board the flagship and plant explosive charges on the communication relays. It was dangerous work, especially in enemy territory, but the team had trained for this moment. The stakes were higher than ever. The Shadow's Edge maneuvered into position, and the crew donned their suits. They would be deploying onto the alien ship using jetpacks, aiming for the communication relay station, located on the ship's outer hull. They only had minutes to complete the mission before the alien ships could catch up to them. Drop in 5, Ortega said as the countdown began. The moment the ship's hull opened, the team leaped into action, jetpacks firing them into the open void of space. They flew toward the flagship, the massive ship looming larger with every passing second. The alien ships above them fired, but the humans were too fast. The team reached the hull of the flagship and quickly attached themselves with magnetic boots, clinging to the surface like spiders on a web. Grant led the charge. She was the first to reach the communications relay. Using cutting-edge technology from Earth's remaining engineers, she quickly set the charges. Her hands were steady, despite the tension building within her. She knew that every second counted. The alien ships were already closing in, their weapons primed for the kill. Charges set, Grant said into her comms, her voice steady. We need to move. Now. The team quickly made their way back to the Shadow's Edge, but as they did, an alien ship suddenly appeared from behind a nearby moon. It had been lying in wait, watching the humans from the shadows. Before anyone could react, it fired a devastating shot, narrowly missing them but damaging their ship's hull. "We've been hit," Ortega shouted. "The shadow's edge is compromised. We need to get out of here, or we'll be sitting ducks." The countdown to detonation was already ticking down. There was no time for retreat. Grant made a quick decision. "Everyone back to the ship. We're not leaving without it." The team rushed back to the shadow's edge, which was now listing to one side, its engines sputtering. They had no choice but to get on board and finish the mission. The alien ship was closing in fast, and if they didn't act now, they would be caught. With a final burst of speed, they made it to the ship. The Shadow's Edge's engines roared to life, and the crew blasted away from the alien flagship just as the charges detonated. The explosion was massive. The flagship's communication relays were destroyed in one fell swoop, sending shockwaves through the alien fleet. For a brief moment, the alien ships were disoriented, unable to communicate with each other. It was the opening humanity had been waiting for. But as the crew of Shadow's Edge made their way back to the safety of Earth's fleet, they knew this was only the beginning. The aliens had been temporarily crippled, but the war was far from over. Humanity had struck back, but now the real battle would begin. The fight for survival was not just about defeating the alien fleet. It was about holding on to hope in the face of impossible odds. And for the first time in weeks, Commander Grant allowed herself to believe, just for a moment, that humanity might just have a chance. The battle had raged for hours, but the fight was far from over. The alien fleet, though disoriented and temporarily disabled by the destruction of their communications network, was quick to regroup. Earth's forces had managed to strike a blow, but the price was high. The damage to humanity's fleet was severe, and many ships were already out of commission. The remaining survivors, however, fought with the kind of determination and desperation that only those who have nothing left to lose could muster. In the heart of the chaos, aboard Horizon's Edge, Commander Elizabeth Grant stood over the tactical map, her brow furrowed. The situation was dire. Despite their brief victory, the alien forces were adapting quickly, restoring their communications and reorganizing their ships. The aliens had a technological advantage that Earth's fleet simply couldn't match, and without reinforcements, it was only a matter of time before the invaders overwhelmed them. "Commander," Captain Jameson said, his voice tinged with exhaustion, "we've taken heavy losses. The fleet is down to half its original strength, and many of the ships are too damaged to continue the fight. We can't keep this up for much longer." Elizabeth's eyes remained fixed on the screen. The remaining alien ships circled Earth like vultures, ready to deliver the final blow. It seemed impossible to fight back, but Elizabeth wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. The message they had received, "Humanity does not submit," still echoed in her mind. She refused to believe it was just a meaningless transmission. There had to be something more to it. There had to be another chance, another way. "Madison," Elizabeth called out, her voice firm. "Anything new on the origin of that message? We need to know where it came from." Lieutenant Madison was busy analyzing the data from the intercepted transmission. She had been working tirelessly, trying to make sense of the strange message. After hours of cross-referencing it with known alien signals and languages, she finally looked up. "Commander, I think I found something," Madison said, her voice laced with disbelief. "The signal isn't just from deep space. It's from a location within our solar system." Elizabeth turned to face her, her interest piqued. "A location within our solar system. Where exactly?" Madison hesitated for a moment. "It's a derelict space station, an old research facility that was abandoned decades ago." The coordinates matched the location of the station in the asteroid belt, between Mars and Jupiter. Grant's heart raced. The asteroid belt, a place that had been ignored by humanity for centuries, forgotten in the rush to explore the outer planets. It made no sense. Why would anyone, or anything, send a message from there. And what connection could it possibly have to their current situation? We need to check it out, Grant said immediately, her voice filled with determination. Prepare a team. We'll launch a reconnaissance mission to the asteroid belt. We need answers, and we need them now. Hours later, Horizon's edge broke through the Earth's atmosphere and into the vast expanse of space, heading toward the asteroid belt. The crew had gathered in the ship's briefing room, waiting for the mission to begin. Grant stood at the front, her expression hard with resolve. We're not sure what we're walking into, she said, addressing her team. The space station has been abandoned for decades. We don't know who or what left that message. But we have no choice. Our survival depends on what we find there. Captain Jameson stepped forward. We'll be ready for anything, Commander. If this is a trap, we'll be prepared. Grant nodded. We won't let our guard down. Stay alert, and remember, we don't have much time. The asteroid belt was a cold and desolate place, a graveyard of ancient remnants from the formation of the solar system. Tiny fragments of rock and dust swirled in space, forming a deadly labyrinth of obstacles. The ship's sensors were constantly scanning for threats, while the crew kept their eyes fixed on the radar screens. It was eerily quiet, with nothing but the hum of the ship's engines to break the silence. Commander, Madison said, her voice tight with anticipation. We've arrived at the coordinates. The station is ahead. It's in worse shape than I expected. The hull is heavily damaged, and there's no sign of life aboard. Grant frowned. It doesn't matter. We're going in. The ship carefully maneuvered through the debris-filled space toward the station, its massive frame slowly coming into view. The station, once a symbol of human innovation, was now a dark, decaying hulk floating in the void. Its exterior was covered in layers of space dust, and large sections of the hull had been torn open by some kind of violent impact. The station looked abandoned, lifeless, but there was something about it that felt off. Something that made Grant's instincts scream that they weren't alone. As they docked with the station, the crew prepared for the unknown. Grant, Jameson, Madison, and a small team of soldiers suited up and boarded the airlock, stepping into the dimly lit corridors of the space station. The walls were lined with rusted panels and empty storage rooms, but the eerie silence was deafening. There were no signs of movement, no lights flickering to life. It was as though the station had been deserted in a hurry. Keep your eyes peeled, Grant ordered as they moved deeper into the station. Stay together. We don't know what we're dealing with. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the station, they discovered something that defied explanation. Strange markings on the walls, symbols that were completely alien in design. They resembled nothing that humanity had ever encountered. These symbols seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, almost as though they were alive. These markings, they weren't made by humans, Madison murmured, her voice trembling. This station wasn't just abandoned. It was occupied. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the station, followed by a high-pitched screech that made everyone jump. The lights flickered, and the temperature dropped several degrees. A cold, unsettling feeling settled in their stomachs as the air grew thick with tension. Did anyone hear that? Jameson whispered, his eyes darting around the dark hallway. Before anyone could respond, a deep rumbling sound filled the station, as if the entire structure were shifting. The walls groaned and creaked, and the station seemed to come alive with an ominous energy. Suddenly, a door on the far side of the corridor slammed open, revealing a vast control room, bathed in a dim, red light. Grant's heart skipped a beat as she stepped forward, leading her team into the room. It was there that they found it, the source of the message. An ancient console, still active despite the years of neglect, flickered to life. On the screen, a holographic projection appeared, showing a figure shrouded in shadows. The figure's voice echoed through the room, distorted and unnatural. Humanity has been chosen. The time to strike back has arrived. The war has just begun. You are not alone. Grant froze, her blood running cold. The message wasn't just a plea for help. It was a prophecy, a call to arms from an ancient alliance, one that had been waiting for humanity to rise. But just as quickly as the message appeared, the projection vanished, leaving only a dark silence in its wake. The room was still. The station was still. And then, the floor beneath them rumbled once more. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the station. The walls cracked, and sparks flew from the damaged consoles. Earth's team scrambled for cover as the station began to break apart. "Get to the ship," Grant shouted. Now. The team rushed back to the docking bay, the station around them crumbling. With every step, the feeling that they were not alone grew stronger. Someone, was watching them. The alien forces were closing in, and it was clear that this derelict station wasn't the only thing humanity had uncovered. The truth about their survival, and their connection to the larger war, was more complex and dangerous than they could have ever imagined. As they reached the horizon's edge, the ship's engines roared to life, and the crew made their escape, narrowly avoiding another explosion as the station tore itself apart in the distance. But as the team looked back at the station's fiery remnants, one thing was clear. Humanity had just uncovered a truth that would change the course of the war, and the road ahead would be far more perilous than they had ever imagined. The galaxy was in chaos, and humanity's place within it had never seemed so fragile. The alien fleet that had descended upon Earth was relentless, vast, and technologically superior. Humanity had fought valiantly, but the battle was far from over. After discovering the enigmatic message from the ancient alliance, the remnants of Earth's forces had barely managed to survive. Yet the fight had taken on a new purpose. This was no longer just about protecting Earth. It was about something much larger. The question wasn't just if humanity would survive, but if they would ever have a place in the universe. Horizon's edge soared through the expanse of space, its engines glowing bright as it cut through the void. The crew, weary and battered from the intense battles of the past weeks, still held a glimmer of hope, an ember that refused to be extinguished. Commander Elizabeth Grant stood at the helm, her eyes locked on the distant stars. They had just returned from the derelict space station, a discovery that had changed everything. The message from the alien figure on the station had been clear. Humanity has been chosen. The time to strike back has arrived. But what did that truly mean? What was the ancient alliance, and how did humanity fit into this galactic conflict? Grant had no answers yet, but she knew that the message wasn't a coincidence. The universe had just revealed a deeper layer of the conflict, one in which humanity had an undeniable role to play. The alliance wasn't just a distant group of unknown beings. It was a force waiting for humanity to rise and join them. "Commander," Madison's voice interrupted Grant's thoughts. "We've intercepted another message. It's from the Alliance." Grant's heart raced. After everything they had been through, this was the moment that could change everything. She quickly turned to Madison, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Play it," she ordered. The screen flickered to life, and an ancient voice, full of wisdom and power, echoed through the command room. "Humanity, you have proven your resilience. You have struck back against overwhelming odds. Now, the time has come for you to join the fight for the galaxy's future. Your actions will decide the fate of all." The message was cryptic, yet filled with purpose. The Alliance had been watching humanity, waiting for the moment when the Earth would rise up and strike back. And now that moment had arrived. But what was this fight for the galaxy's future? Who were they fighting against? "We need to move quickly," Grant said, her voice steady with resolve. "Prepare the fleet. We'll follow these coordinates. Whatever the Alliance is offering, we need to be ready. We've come too far to back down now." Hours later, the fleet of Earth's remaining ships gathered in orbit, ready for the next phase of their mission. The coordinates they had received led them to the outskirts of the galaxy, to a distant star system far beyond anything humanity had ever explored. It was an uncharted territory, a place filled with uncertainty and danger. As the fleet approached, the first signs of something extraordinary began to appear. They entered a nebula, a vast cloud of glowing gas that illuminated the space around them with an otherworldly glow. Strange shapes and structures began to form out of the mist, massive ships unlike anything Earth's fleet had ever seen. These weren't alien ships, they were the ships of the ancient alliance, vast and majestic, their designs elegant and harmonious. "Are we sure this is where we're supposed to be?" Jameson asked, his voice tinged with awe. "This feels like a dream." Grant turned to him, her face set with determination. "This is where we make our stand. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Humanity doesn't back down." The fleet entered the heart of the nebula, where a colossal space station sat at the center, a hub for the Alliance. It was a place of great significance, one that connected different species and civilizations across the galaxy. As they docked, the crew could feel the weight of history in the air. This was no longer a war for Earth alone. This was a battle for the very future of the galaxy itself. The crew of Horizon's Edge disembarked, stepping onto the platform of the ancient Alliance's space station. The station was alive with activity, beings of all shapes and sizes working together in harmony. Grant felt a sense of awe wash over her as she took in the alien technology that surrounded them. It was clear that the Alliance was not only advanced, but had long ago mastered the art of cooperation among species. They were greeted by a figure who stepped forward from the shadows. An alien being, tall and imposing, with translucent skin that shimmered in the dim light. Its eyes were ancient, wise, and filled with a sense of urgency. "You are humanity," the being said, its voice resonating deep within Grant's mind. "You have come far. But the war is not over. The galaxy's fate rests on your shoulders." "We're ready," Grant replied, standing tall. "Tell us what we need to do." The being studied her for a moment before speaking again. "The aliens that attack your world are part of a larger empire, a force that seeks to dominate the galaxy, to erase all that is free. They are known as the Valthar, and they have already wiped out countless civilizations. But their rule is not absolute. The Alliance stands against them. And now, you will stand with us." Grant's mind raced. The Valthar, an empire that spanned galaxies, a force that had crushed entire civilizations. The thought of facing such a powerful enemy was terrifying, but there was no turning back now. Humanity had already shown its strength, and they would show it again. "You will need to join our forces," the alien being continued. "Your fleet, your technology, your will to survive. Together, we can defeat the Valthar. But it will not be easy. The battle will be long, and many will fall. Are you prepared for this fight?" Grant looked around at her crew, the people who had stood by her side through every battle, every hardship. She saw their determination mirrored in their eyes. They weren't ready to give up. Not now, not ever. "We're ready," she said firmly, her voice resolute. "We'll fight. We'll strike back. We won't surrender." The being nodded, and with a wave of its hand, the station's vast network came to life. Ships, weapons, and supplies were gathered, ready for the impending war. Humanity had officially joined the fight against the Valthar. The battle began shortly after. The Valthar fleet, massive and ruthless, arrived in the star system, prepared to crush the Alliance once and for all. But they were met with an unexpected resistance. Earth's ships, joined by the Alliance, formed a united front, standing firm against the overwhelming force of the Valthar. The space around them was filled with explosions, lasers, and the deafening roar of warfare. The Alliance's ships were formidable, their technology advanced beyond anything Earth had ever seen. But humanity brought something to the table that no one had expected: courage. The fleet fought with an intensity that sent shockwaves through the Valthar forces. The aliens had underestimated humanity's will to survive. Grant was at the heart of the action, her ship Horizon's Edge cutting through the enemy lines, her crew fighting with everything they had. Every blast, every maneuver, every decision made counted. The tide of battle was shifting. As the Valthar flagship loomed before them, Grant knew this was the moment. If they could take down the flagship, they could cripple the enemy's forces and end the war. The Valthar fleet, though vast, was losing its cohesion. Their command structure was faltering. Humanity's strike had made all the difference. With a final, desperate push, the combined fleet of humanity and the Alliance launched a devastating attack on the Valthar flagship. It was a direct hit. The flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. The remaining Valthar ships, disoriented and leaderless, began to retreat. For the first time in weeks, the crew of Horizon's Edge allowed themselves a moment of victory. The battle was won. The galaxy had been saved, and humanity had proven itself. As the dust settled and the last of the Valthar forces flooded into the void, Commander Elizabeth Grant stood on the observation deck of Horizon's Edge, watching the stars stretch out before her. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had triumphed. The universe had been watching, and humanity had risen to the challenge. Earth's place in the galaxy had been secured, not as a conquered world, but as a vital part of a galactic alliance, fighting for freedom and survival. Humanity didn't submit. It struck back. And now, it was part of something much larger than itself. The battle had been won, but the war for the galaxy's future had only just begun. And humanity, together with the Alliance, was ready for whatever came next.